Yo, what's up guys, it's Talon. Today I'm going to be coaching a Grandmaster Lucian and Kai'Sa player. This is a bit of like a higher elo kind of coaching than previous coachings that kind of go over more fundamentals. We still talk about some basic things as well, but if you're a bit of a higher level ADC, I feel like it's more valuable to watch this coaching compared to some other coachings. If you're interested in coaching from a rank 5 sovereign autofill player, then just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's get right into it.
Yeah. So
Okay, cool. So champion pool, what is the typical champions? Hecarim?
no, I'm an ADC.
Oh, you're ADC. Why did I say jungle? I don't know why, but so you're Lucian. Okay, okay. Yeah, I
Yes,
have no
exactly.
idea why. So you're duo Q a lot then as well, or no?
Yeah, I duo and trio Q a lot. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Definitely as an ADC. So Lucian is the most, or do we play others as well?
I so it started the most with Draven, and then I
Okay.
realized Draven is just not. I don't know. Like I'm getting diffed a lot, but I'm kind of getting diffed with a lot of champions. So my champion pool is Draven, Lucian, Tristana, uh, uh, Thanks.
Okay.
So the most ones I use is Lucian and Tristana, pretty much.
Got it, got it. I mean, yeah, those are good champions. So first thing, when your support does things like this, I mean, since you're duo, you can tell them if you want to go to the bush right away. Like in my opinion, you should go to the bush first. But because they go up here, I mean, you got to be in the same spot as them regardless, you know, especially if you are ever playing with a random. But the reason I would prefer you to be here is because then if the enemy ward it, you can get a word and then you get level 2 first. And ideally, because you are really strong early game, you can just get prio level 1 and then word level 2, and then that word's going to be like lasting longer. So I'd prefer doing what you're doing, but either way, listen, you know, to what your sport does, because you kind of just have to follow as an ADC. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, your words are tiny. Oh my god, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's this game where I actually do some
Yeah.
warding trolling. Doesn't happen usually, but yeah, that
Yeah.
happens.
So here, for example, you could go ward their Krugs right now. Like as an early aggressive ADC, after getting prio level 1 doesn't usually matter, especially with an engage support, because level 2 is what matters, which is obviously first minion of second minion wave. So usually if you hard push like that, which I'm happy for you to do, just go ward their Krugs, because then you can find, if you see the Krugs have not yet been taken, you pretty much know the enemy jungle's pathing towards you, because that means they would have started blue side, unless they're doing red to Krugs, which then you'd see them like 20 seconds later. So either way, you're going to know exactly where the enemy jungle's pathing, and you're pretty much never going to have to worry about getting ganked without knowing where they are, unless they do really weird pathing. So that's almost always something I want to do if I do a prio, which your support actually does, and so maybe you just knew that
Mm.
they were doing it. If that's the case, then that's fine
No, I
too.
didn't.
Okay.
I
But yeah,
didn't. I didn't.
that's always something to keep in mind then, because now we see the Krugs are gone, so we know we're getting pathed away from, so we're not worried about a gank. And our jungler started red side. He's doing pathing red side, so he's going to come towards us, and so we can trade more aggressively pretty happily because our jungler is going to be here before enemy jungle ever will. So it's totally fine to just trade like more aggressively, like you did here, for example. Obviously, it's
Yeah,
normally
but
yeah. What's up?
I I I I think my struggle is the trading. I don't really know um when to trade, like matchups. I do most of my games. I do fine.
Yeah.
I do decent, but I'm just not able to really, like, even if I have a lead, end the game because of the enemy, whatever jungle top who just denies me,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm pretty much getting bullied throughout the game. So that's really what I struggle with.
Okay, yeah. So for the first thing for laning or for trading, there is an issue already with how you trade here. So like it's hard to trade. Let's think about it this way. The matchup here, your goal is to win an all-in because they have healing, right? So if you do damage to Nami or Zaya, it's not permanent damage because they have healing. But you have no healing.
Yeah.
So you essentially, the longer the lane goes on, the less health you have if it's, you know, like long trade or poking and whatever. And so you want to really find an all-in angle, which means most likely you're not killing anyone unless Leona CC someone and then ignites them and you find an all-in. Now again, we said because our junglers here, we might want to try to have like one hard trade on them where they get like half HP, and then even if you slightly lose a trade, since you're getting passed towards, you can find your second like spell rotation, you can find all in. So that's the first thing, is that our goal in the lane is not to take a ton of short trades, which is kind of what you do here. And then another thing
Yeah.
is your engages, or when you decide to go in, needs to be coordinated a lot better, especially if you're duo Q. So notice how you're standing up here, which means that both of the enemy who are ranged can attack you at the same time. Meanwhile, your Leona,
Yeah.
she's not in third ability range, so she's essentially useless here. And then watch what happens. You're gonna take autos from both people. You continue to take damage from both people. Then as Leona walks up, all your spells are on cooldown. You have to walk away. You're low health, and then she goes in. And so now you guys essentially both are taking double amounts of damage because you're never together. So you have to be on essentially a parallel line. Like notice how these two people are standing basically in a parallel line, so anytime one person goes on to someone, you can also go on to someone. So you basically have to be more aware of your engage range of your champions, or if you're with a range support, then the auto attack range, and you have to be in a way where you guys can both do damage at the same time, because if you walk up like this, then this is why you lose the trade so hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It does.
And then yeah, now obviously we can't really make a play with our jungler pathing towards us since our Leona is so low, so then this is where kind of the issue comes in, since we can't really take advantage of it. And that's just kind of what happens. And that's especially true of short range champions, because like you are outranged in this matchup very hard, which is why you have to find those angles, because it is. And you play Tristana, Draven, and Lucian. They're all short range early games, so that's like a really important thing. And then the other thing, when you did end up going in there, and then your teammate went in, you should have just continued to auto attack even though you had no spells, because if your teammate goes in, they're going to get targeted either way. So you just walking up and getting free autos while they're targeting someone else is going to make more sense, so that the enemy are a bit more scared to, you know, walk back or walk up on you and whatever, rather than running away as soon as your teammate goes forward. But it ended up not mattering. We still get a recall off. But like I said, now the problem here is that your jungler didn't have an opportunity to gank when he should have. And so now he's probably going to have to go back to red side within 30 seconds, and then their jungler is going to start pathing towards you. So now he's recalling now. So now you're kind of getting screwed, because the jungler we know is pathing towards us, since they started opposite of our jungler, right? So now when you start pushing and whatever, it's going to be a lot more dangerous, because we didn't take advantage of that opportunity when our jungler was here. And then another thing, again, stop me anytime you have questions or anything if I'm talking too much. I'm going to write down the main points at the end of this, so I know it's a lot. The point is I talk about all the small things, and the main points we'll write down, so you can have specific things to learn. But again, your support, and you should just talk to them, like you can just type with them, whatever. I don't know how frequently you play with this specific individual, but whoever you play with the most, you should especially talk to them about these things. They should typically be on the left side controlling the bush and like on this area, and you should be standing on the right side. But say that your support's not listening and they end up going on this side, you want to be on the other. You just want to make sure you're not on the same side grouped right on top of each other, because it's really easy to get CC'd or AoE'd or like those types of things as well.
Yeah.
And then small thing when you're wave clearing here, again, we know the enemy jungler is pathing towards us. Don't use your third ability for stuff like that. Like for wave clear, because it's a long cooldown, so it's not that unlikely that you get ganked at that point, just because of that fact. I think, do we end up seeing the jungler on, is that the jungler or the Pantheon? I think he is. Like his pathing is very inefficient, so it turns out that he's just really bad at the game, which sometimes will obviously happen, so then it doesn't really end up mattering, but based on the information we had, we should have expected him to be pathing towards us, so.
Okay, yeah.
And then now because of that, we're gonna be like, okay, now when our Hecarim is coming towards, and this is again when you're playing an all-in angle, like an all-in team comp, or like dual lane, like Lucian, Leona, or whatever, and your only goal is all-in, jungle is extremely important. That's why I'm speaking so much about jungle, because that's usually when you're gonna base your all-in timers, unless you just see really good angles to go in anyways. Especially because you can't really all-in a Zion level 5 or anything like that. So now that Pantheon died, we know he's gonna go back to red side, because he hasn't cleared his red side for a long time and he's been really inefficient. And so then now our Hecarim's actually going to be matched here, so we can kind of keep that in mind, like a possible 3v3 can occur and these types of things, like for jungle tracking. That's kind of the main thing to keep in mind. But you don't really have an all-in angle onto Xayah Nami now that they're level 5, and then he ends up just being kind of dumb. I don't even think you need to flash, but I don't hate flashing to make sure. And then ulting here as well. There's no real reason for you to ult so early. You might as well wait for him to get CC'd or something, because then you're just going to guarantee land way more spells, right? But, I mean, it ended up working out, so it doesn't really matter. And the Pantheon's clearly very bad. Like, he's been very inefficient and then just ulted on a Lucian for no reason. So, we'll take it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and then, I would just say you should recall here. I don't really, I don't feel like it's that valuable to stay. I don't think you'll hit, like, a full item or anything. So it's not like you're necessarily gaining a lot of value here. You're just making it so now you're going to be stuck, like, recalling when they can now get proud. Because what should happen, you get very greedy, so even more greedy. But say even you did recall here, what would end up happening is Xayah can walk up here, get control of the next wave, and then even though you got prio here, it doesn't matter because now once dragon spawning, she has the prio, and you're stuck clearing a wave under turret. So then say your jungler did go to dragon, I think he's going herald, but say he did go dragon, you're not going to be able to help him because you're going to have to choose between the wave or helping him. So usually about 30 seconds before the objective, if we have any amount of gold to spend or we're low health or low mana, we need to recall, and then yeah, obviously we end up I think dying here, or at least
I agreed with it because of the item, and I had that small buff that gives me a little bit more health, so I thought, okay, let's take it.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that is one of the biggest things about like playing these like early game champs is usually it's not hard to get an early lead. I'm sure you're pretty good at getting leads most of the time with these champions, and the issue is when you get really greedy on timers that don't actually matter, and then that's where the game starts to snowball, because making one mistake, all of a sudden Xayah catches up to you in gold, and now she's going to outscale you, and the game gets like really hard from there. So main thing, again, like it's not a complicated thing, but making sure that we're not getting overly greedy and being aware of objectives and what actually matters. And again, timing our like aggression in lane based on jungle pathing, and then again trading, being on kind of a parallel line with our support. Those are probably the main things so far that I see. And then I mean like small thing like waiting before people are CC'd, use your ultimate usually will be better, unless obviously you see an easy angle to pick them or whatever. But
yeah.
And yeah, like being greedy, there's different times where it's okay to be greedy for golds. Like, and even here, I know, like, you know, I don't really think you need the ult here. I'm pretty sure you just Q the wave, you keep autoing the turret, you Q it again. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but a little unnecessary.
Okay.
But like those types of things aren't things I'm like, you know, that's not probably what's losing you games. You know, queuing or ulting a wave one time, that's nothing that big. More of a minor thing, so I don't really care that much if you're doing something like that every once in a while if you think it's going to be more beneficial. But are you going magnetic second or no, you're going Solari second, actually. You're going Solari. I forgot.
Solari.
Yeah. I'm guessing you're going magnetic third.
Yeah, no, Solari, yeah.
In my opinion, going Solari plus magnetic is kind of bad with Stormrazor. Like, you're getting yourself a lot of attack speed and not enough AD, which for Lucian, the problem is like he's more of a champ that like utilizes AD a lot better than attack speed, because you're using an ability between every auto attack. So getting those attacks out slightly quicker isn't as big of a deal, because every time you use a spell, you're buffering a little bit, so then you'll have your next auto attack up, so you're not really getting that much value out of it. So for me, when I'm outranged, I'll go magnetic second, and then when I'm like not worried about that, I'm more just worried about bursting someone down, I'll go for Solari, because it's like better damage overall, better burst. So it's kind of choosing between those two items, and then usually Mortal IE are going to be like the third, fourth items for the most part, because obviously Mortal's pretty broken right now, like with 33% pen, and works really well with your champ, and then IE, or you can go Navori if you prefer Navori, that's kind of up to you.
Yeah.
And then another thing about kind of pushing your leads is like I would be recalling and trying to go either mid or bot here. Now that we just pushed out a wave, it looks like you might end up getting caught, but yeah. Okay, and then he ends up, so it ends up kind of turning out weird. I think you're probably going to get a kill, but generally,
no, he gets away.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, he gets away.
Yeah, that happens. Either way, generally speaking, the thing that I'm going to be trying to do once I have a lead like this is take turrets on other parts of the map. So like at this point, I'll only really go back to my lane for the wave when it's like, you know, I just need to clear the wave. But the main goal would be now going towards probably the mid lane with your support, since bot's already killed. If bot wasn't killed yet, I would probably try to get bot. And then again, notice how you're really greedy on a wave where you have item, you have a lot of gold to spend, you're kind of low mana. I mean, you're not in the worst spot if you just ult the wave here. Like, okay, this is a situation where ulting the wave makes sense. It doesn't really matter either way. Like, it's still fine to Q and just W and clear it, but it's just like, this is a timer where you can actually get some tempo off of the fact that you clear the wave really quickly, whereas the last time you were going to be able to stick around and clear that wave anyways, because here it allows you to get quick recall off, and then if Xayah stays after that for the next wave, you have a lot of time to rotate to another part of the map and take mid turret. Like, look here again. So Xayah's stuck here, right? Say you ulted the wave. Yeah. This is the wave she'd be able to take your tower on. So then, if we're looking at, let's just look at when you could recall. So recall takes 5 seconds, right? And then I'm saying here, you could have ulted the wave right now. Say you get it by 850, then you recall. The next wave doesn't come until, so again, 850. The next wave didn't get here until 9:15. She's not going to clear it till 9:10. This is 25 seconds. It'll take her probably 30 seconds to kill your turret, right? So you could have had 30 seconds, 5 seconds to recall, maybe a second or two to walk out of base. You're here, and she still has 15 seconds until she can take your turret. So now, 2 people dead, you go mid, 1 person bot. You either kill the last person mid here with your trend, or you just get a free turret, and it's a mid turret, which is more valuable, and that gold is going onto you, which allows you to snowball more. So instead of wasting your time and, like, you know, again, that's why the ultimate clear, it's a tempo play. It allows us to get a quick recall off, so then we can spend gold and go on another part of the map while someone gets stuck there. It's not something you do just because you want to clear a wave really quickly, unless you have a specific objective, like, or something to do once you clear that wave. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, yes.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
And yeah, I mean, you might still end up killing her though, so works out. And yeah, it does look like you're going magnetic third. But yeah, what's up?
I usually struggle, especially when I play Draven. I really struggle playing against Xayah. I don't.
I mean, Xayah is very good
One
at
of my
Lucian,
hardest.
Draven, Tristana. She counters your entire champion pool, so it does make sense. Because I mean,
Oh,
she's really
funny.
good into
Okay.
aggressive champs and whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, disengage is so strong. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here I'm thinking QSS makes sense. Like typically, I don't buy like early defensive items, but your like the goal typically is 2 items before second dragon, ideally. And if you have additional gold there, you're gonna get more value from an active that will save your life than you will from a Kerchi's chart. Like it's not gonna do anything for you, just in terms of like the value you get from it. 20% attack speed is again on Lucian. We already spoke about why attack speed is not that valuable. And you're getting like slightly extra damage, whatever. That compared to a Pantheon stunning you and then you surviving that stun with a QSS, or even if you want to buy a stasis, is going to be good. So typically, again, I don't want to buy early defensive items too much, but if you're hitting, you know, the pacing that you need to hit, which is like second item before second drag, and you have that additional gold on the recall, and you know a dragon fight's about to happen, it makes sense to buy that active because it's going to be really valuable for that specific fight. And if you win this specific fight really hard, you're snowballing the game so much, you probably get an additional 300 to 600 gold, which again, if we're spending 800 gold, we get 300 to 600 gold from that fight or whatever, and then maybe we even go get a mid-wave turret, whatever. We're pretty much getting that gold value back anyways, plus that active is still obviously going to be useful for us for like the whole game. So that's why it kind of makes sense in these specific scenarios where you're a bit ahead of the curve, right before a dragon fight starts, to buy like an active like that.
Got it. Just as a refresher, I shouldn't be buying Solaris and what's it called? And charge blade.
Yeah.
Magnetic. I shouldn't buy both. That's just
Correct.
waste of gold because I don't need that much attack speed.
Yeah, compared to the passives like the 33% pen from Mortal or the Infinity Edge. I actually coached a different Lucian player recently, and they made like a graphic when I told them about the build. So I'll just send you that graphic because it kind of like it's pretty like a good graphic to just show you the typical builds that you can go through or like the choices you have with itemization. So I'll just send you that. Just remind me if I forget to do that at the end. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I mean, we end up team wiping them here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Do we win this game or do we lose?
We lose this game.
Okay. So that's good then. We talked about a lot of the early things to go through, but we still got a lead, so you'll still be able to figure out kind of what to do once you get a lead. And like I said, if you're doing a lot of these other things, like playing especially around tempo, and your recall timer's better, and you making these trades more based around jungle pathing and with your like your support being positioned better together in a parallel line or whatever, your lane phase you should win a lot more lanes, and you already win a lot of lanes, as we can probably tell. So if you're able to do that, then we can find out again how to play with a lead, and you should be able to definitely win like a lot more games just through those couple improvements.
Yeah.
And then the build thing is a smaller thing. Like this build isn't like bad or anything. Stormrazor, Solari, Magnetic is pretty fine. It's just not optimal. And so this is already the first kind of mistake we're making here. At some point, you just got to be like, okay, my top turret, it's not that big of a deal if I lose one top turret. I don't really care. What I do care about is starting to get control around the Baron. Because again, you're very strong here. You just hit 3 items at 11 minutes. That's like nearly 1k gold per minute almost, a little less, but like 900 gold per minute, whatever. Very, very strong. At this point, you matter a lot and you want to be a part of a lot of fights. And Lucian's strongest point is the mid game. So you need to take advantage on mid waves, especially when you hit magnetic, to like go for picks, especially with your support and whatever. So essentially why I say you can't go top here. If you go top here, you already have a dead teammate. Your Tryndamere, we can never trust a Tryndamere to really, or really any split pusher to not just randomly die. Say that any of the enemy are here, right? We don't see anyone. We don't know where anyone is. Hypothetically, 4 or 5 people could all be here right now looking for this guy. They kill him. They have complete control over Baron. Maybe your Hecarim does something dumb as well. Like you never know what's going to happen. Basically, if you go up here, you're getting 200 gold and maybe denying them some gold from the turret, which is obviously nice. But at this point, the efficiency is not as important as making sure we have control over like an objective and having the mid wave first. And again, you're going to get the mid wave anyway, so you're still going to be getting some amount of gold. Now, I don't necessarily like hate, like I'm not going to be like pissed at a player for going for this wave first and then rotating after. The problem is when you end up sticking around for too long, and then if you don't get a kill or you even end up dying here, because again, we don't know where the jungler is, which, then he shows up here and we kind of see, again, just the same, we didn't know where anyone was bot, we didn't know, that they could be top as well, and then this is what happens as well, possible picks or whatever, so just these are the types of throws that kind of make it really bad if we're around Baron or whatever. But because this happened on the top side, it's not as dangerous. But at this point, again, you should also kind of realize like me living is way more valuable than me maybe getting a kill here, because
I die.
Yeah, so what happens if you do kill someone there? You don't get Baron, but what happens if you die? They get Baron if your teammates didn't get picks as well. Your teammates luckily killed some people, but basically the risk reward is not worth it. And it's very tempting on Lucian to dash forward frequently, but like generally speaking, if we don't see an actual benefit we can get from the play, and also like your jungler was on the other side of the map as well. So again, we had very little information and we knew that all of our teammates weren't there, and we still went for like a rather aggressive play. So I mean, kind of obvious. I mean, I get like it's tempting sometimes to dash forward on Lucian. I definitely do it sometimes too, but yeah.
Yes, yeah, got it.
Same with Tristana, actually. The W, dude, like that is
With the W with Tristana, I feel like I don't use it enough. I'm kind of scared because I had enough experience that when I can't really tell. Okay, I jump in and then I just die.
No, it's definitely a hard balance to find with the champion. I mean, that's like, since you've played the champions a lot, you kind of understand the differences, or like, the limits a little better. When someone's first learning it, I'll tell them to kind of overly jump forward and go forward a lot. And then, test or whatever, but obviously you know the champ pretty well. Again, even here, like, what I'm thinking when I look at this position, I already don't like my jungler being here. I want my Trynd here. It's, kind of unfortunate that Trynd's not here, so I get that you kind of want to clear the wave. But ideally, I don't really care that much until I'm seeing, like, a lot of actual pressure go on this side. So my Hecarim's going there. I'm like, okay, let me make sure I go, again, control the mid wave first. Because what also happens with the mid wave, and you need to coordinate these things with your support. Like, have your support actually cut. Who's the other person you do it with, by the way? You say a trio, right? Or who's the other person?
It's Leona and Trynd.
Okay. So then okay, well that's perfect, because literally we can control both of these people's actions because we're trio with them. You are like, hopefully anyways, we can talk to them at some point, if we're playing with them frequently. Your Tryndamere needs to be opposite of Baron. A split pusher's job is to be opposite side of whatever objective is spawning, get prio there, draw pressure there, and then maybe after they push the wave out, they can either rotate or they can continue to draw pressure as we do something else. The job of the support is to help the ADC on the mid wave, or whoever is on the most dangerous wave. Their job is to help them clear that wave and then use that pressure to get other things. Because if you push this mid wave, then someone has to show, right? Because they're not going to let it just die under their turret. Someone will show here. That gives you more information. But if you go on this mid wave by yourself, obviously it's too dangerous. But if you go on this top wave right now onto this Yasuo, and your Tryndamere's recalling, say, again, your teammates get picked here, because there could be 4 people here with the Pantheon ult, right? 4 people could straight up be here. Both of them die. Your jungler and you are on this side. Yasuo is kind of a champion who low-key could outplay you potentially as well. And then Baron's gone and you lose the game. And like, these are the types of things that could happen. And making a play like this for a random top wave, especially if we're trio. Again, if you're solo queue, sometimes you have to go for these types of things because you can't trust your team always to catch proper waves. But especially when we're trio or duo, we can definitely coordinate this a lot better. And then we're kind of seeing what happens, right? You guys are late to this because of the exact thing we spoke about. Your teammate ends up getting caught there. And this is where then it doesn't matter. the mid wave, right? Typically, again, I will tell you, go for the mid wave, then rotate. The reason the mid wave is bad to go for here is because this is the game being decided right now, potentially. If your team dies
Yeah.
here, you lose Baron, right? So this takes priority over everything, because this is all that matters, is winning this fight, so that then you can get the Baron. So once there's like a Baron in the game especially, that has to be the main priority, and we still want to get the mid control when it's possible, but we don't want to get that over, you know, our entire team being in a fight where you being a couple seconds late could potentially change the outcome of the fight. Does all that make sense? Or?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, and I think that's like one of my biggest issues, that I prio the wave
Yeah.
before fights, and my team dies, and I'm there like, okay,
Yeah, and
what do I do
it's
now?
hard because, okay, and this is also kind of, you didn't really need to, you know, okay, I mean, it is what it is, but either way, it is important. Like, I'd rather that you're initially prioing the wave and gold and efficiency over fighting, because the main problem of most ADCs I coach is that they're too much, you know, fighting all the time and just going to every fight. So I don't want you to start just going to every fight for no reason or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, you need to understand when the fight can change the game, because that fight, again, could lose you the game from a Baron or whatever. And when we're ahead, our main thing in our mind needs to be, how can we not throw? And frankly, you're going to be ahead a lot with the champion pool you have, especially if you're playing duo queue and coordinate with people, whatever. So you need to understand, again, once a Baron is up, if someone's fighting near that Baron, I can't really go to that, or I need to go to that fight right away, rather. Or if my teammate's fighting on the opposite side of the Baron, unless I see a lot of the enemy where I know they can't possibly get a Baron after that, and like then I can maybe go. But otherwise, I don't really need to go there for no reason. That type of thing. And also, I don't know, what are the dragon counts right now? If dragon counts are, if either team has 2 currently, then I don't really like taking the T-Rex because you're pretty valuable in the fight. But if dragons are 1-to-1, then I like taking the dragon, or I like taking the T-Rex because you get a lot of gold from it. So yeah, I'm not sure which is the case.
Yeah.
But if this is soul for them, then it's bad. Otherwise, it's fine.
I don't know myself right now.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I mean, we'll see. And then you can see, yeah, again, the coordination, it looks like it was not soul for them. So unless, yeah, you guys had 2 dragons, then that's fine. It's whatever. So then it's really good to use a T-Rex like this to get yourself a bunch of free gold. Yeah, your Leona's gameplay is extremely questionable too. Like in a lot of situations, like she just went on the thing by herself. Like if you're playing with someone like this, you can, again, ping a lot or tell them like in the game, you know, maybe type whatever. And then the one thing when you're piloting T-Rex but you are an ADC is you have to be a bit more careful, because then something like this could happen.
Yeah.
And you should have kind of understood that you're dead again. There's no reason to waste everything. You're obviously dead when 4 people are on top of you and no one else is there. So I mean, this shouldn't be that big of a deal because nothing is up. But the problem is, since we did waste our flash and our other things, is going to be a little rough. But it won't really matter unless the entire team dies. But yeah,
And
we can see
there's
like
one
having
more.
no IE here is really hard. But also you need mortal.
Okay.
So it's like, now that we have no IE on 4 items, we don't really have the burst that we would want to have otherwise into squishy champions. But like I said, the mortal is obviously really important for melting the tanks, which is why that's pretty much always like the last 2 items that I'm going for on Lucian.
So if I don't go both of those attack speed items, do I then go Mortal Reminder and IE?
Yeah, you go both. You go mortal 3rd, IE 4th usually. If they're really squishy, you can go mortal last. But mortal is always going to be valuable on your champion because you have a lot of AD ability based abilities that are AD. So like 33% pen is just going to be more than any flat pen item by far at that point in the game, because people are going to have over 60 armor minimum just from base, and usually they're going to have 1 to 200, especially if they built anything. So like you're going to be doing anywhere from 20 to like 50 plus flat pen, which flat pen items only do like 15 to 18. So that's like way more already than a Duskblade passive or whatever else. And you're also getting anti-heal, which is almost always going to do something to someone. And then the crit obviously helps with mortals or with the IE. So it's pretty much is always the best option. I mean, if there's other like things you could go for, but that's just like the general thing that in most scenarios is going to be best. And then yeah, if you're Q assessing this, you should be fine. Okay, the problem is you get flanked here, so that's a little unfortunate. That was a weird flank from Zaya. We'll watch through this fight.
I was thinking the same.
Yeah, that was very strange. Like, I mean, this seems like a bit of a weird situation. I don't necessarily have like a huge issue with how you're playing it or anything. It seems like it kind of turns out strange. I mean, like, small thing, maybe you can dash a little closer to your team here, like over here, right? Because then you're getting a bit closer to team. Whereas, yeah, like if you dash here And guess this is a little bit of a hindsight thing. I'm not like the type of person who tries to maximize every small thing in a fight. You're gonna sometimes mess up a fight. That's just what happens. And for me, it's more the decision making that leads you to that fight and being as strong as you can. But like if we are looking at it, typically if we're trying to dash into our team when we're getting gone on it, it's a little better. Whereas we dash, this way. But again, very weird flank. Kind of hard to expect that. So it's not like the end of the world.
Yeah. Okay.
And then yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we just lose here because that. Well, it's actually a longer video, so such a boosted dog. Nice Heckram. Very kind. I usually just mute chat personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I should too. Funnily enough, both games that I have is, well, I'm not saying that we lose and win because, but this game, we have a challenger Heimerdinger who is kind of feeding. And the
Yeah.
next game we win because we have a Heimerdinger who's literally the MVP, and you'll see why.
Yeah, that is odd your challenger's feeding, but it is unlucky, I guess. Because yeah, he is like 1-9. I mean, it's definitely the biggest reason why you lose, but like again, there are the things we could have done that definitely I think would have led to us probably winning anyway, but it's like that's
Yeah.
usually how I am when I try to like I might be tilted right after a game, but say I think about it like an hour later or whatever. Generally my thought process is my teammate probably sucked. He was probably the biggest reason we lost, but also I could have done things that probably would have led to us winning otherwise. That's usually how I try to approach it, because then it kind of makes it so you're not just like always tilted at yourself, but you're also still trying to find ways to get better. But
Yeah.
and then wait, do we need Ma here? Do they have that much AP? They have Yasuo, Pantheon. Neither of those are AP. Yeah. There's no reason I ever build Ma here. They are only AP is Nami, and then maybe they have one AP champ. I don't know. I forget who their last champ is, but Asol. And Asol doesn't target you well at all. Like Asol's damage is pretty much all focused on damaging tanks, apart from his ultimate might hit you obviously. But like Asol's not really gonna hit you. There's no reason to go Ma. GA would be better. I think GA would be probably just the best item. You could go Cleaver if you're really trying to melt tanks, but they don't really have tanks. So yeah, I mean, again, I'll send you like kind of the thing on builds that generally will give you a better idea of that. And then do you know how to build well in like Tristana as well, or do you want me to like try to send you some type of build for that as well?
Yeah, I would like a build for that as well. What I'm building right now is like a on hits build that I see on the
Okay.
leaderboard. Like they're
No,
all
some people
using
go
like
for
on
the
hit
on-hit
builds.
builds. I'm not a fan of it, but like if you're gonna go that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Again, not my preference. The reason I don't like the on-hit build, it's like a lot worse into squishy champions. It's really hard to like burst down squishies, but you are gonna be better into tanks. So for me, I don't recommend going that build every game, and in fact, I don't recommend going in most games. But those builds are really good into tanks. So if you're just going it every single game, it's kind of, and like I get the leaderboard players, they do it too. Like these top players, they'll go the exact same build every game, and just pray that it works. I still don't know how you lose, by the way. Like what?
Don't remember either. I mean, we
Yeah,
couldn't
like
finish that, and then
really, you win this. You just like int at the end.
well, I know I don't die anymore.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah, we
see. I
just
mean,
didn't end.
all that we should be doing is just getting control over Baron. It should be pretty free here. Again, if we're looking at the itemization, GA is so much better here. Like, it makes it so much easier to play the game. You end up going for steel caps. I mean, yeah, that's fine to switch to. I mean, your damage is going to be a lot lower. So, like, your damage is very low with this build, because especially once you go steel caps. Because, again, the lack of AP that we spoke about. So, we're really going to be pretty useless as a champion, damage-wise, at this point in the game doing that. I don't hate you doing it if, say, you had the proper build, but... And you felt like you're getting one shot. So the other thing actually here is like, actually I don't think you're pulling up the scoreboard. I wanted to find scoreboard, but like, you need to understand with itemization whether or not you matter, basically. And at this point in the game, your real objective, or what would you say your objective? What do you think your objective is in team fights at this point in the game?
I think staying back and trying to do as much damage as possible.
Okay, so
Survive.
I mean, essentially that's always the job of an ADC. To be like a bit more specific, you're not really like crazy powerful at this point in the game as Lucian. You're not bad, but you're worse probably than Xayah, and there's a lot of champions who can go on you and kill you pretty easily. But like you have other people on your team who are strong and they're very aggressive. Like Hecarim, Leona, and Trend are all gonna dive forward, right? Like they have to go forward to do their damage. And so you need to find an angle to go in during these fights to blow someone up when your teammates go in. Like, your job is essentially to wait until that engage happens and then go forward and try to go ideally on a squishy champion and blow them up. Everyone on the enemy team is pretty squishy, but like, again, you're trying to wait for these certain spells to come out and for your teammate to go in and then to dive really far forward. So because of that, you need as much damage as possible, more than trying to survive like someone diving onto you, because you're not really going to get dove on realistically with this team comp until your team goes forward. And if you're going forward with them, then it's kind of fine. Like, again, we'll watch how we play the fight out, but you should be really paying attention to your Leona and being in a position with your Leona. So even like, look, a Leona Heimerdinger going here and you're walking up here, it's very easy for someone to kill you if you walk forward in this position. Whereas, like, again, look how this is exactly what we're saying, right? They're going forward here. You're not in a position to blow anyone up, even though that's the like identity of our team comp. So the difference is the way that you said to play the fight. That's how you play it when you're giga fed and everyone else is not. Like, when you're all that matters, you need to understand that, right? When you're really ahead, then everyone's going to go on you because everyone wants to kill the fed member. So then you just play to do damage. And then once, you know, the spells are out or your team does something, you go forward and your goal is much more survival and then just getting that damage out, because you doing a couple autos will pretty much one-shot someone when you're ahead. But in this type of situation, you need to be going with your team. Whereas here, when you go on Pantheon like this, he's going to survive for quite a while. You'll probably end up... Okay, your mechanics just sucked there. So you should kill him there, but you ulted. If you just QSS, W, auto, E, auto, you kill, or Q, auto, whatever you wanted to do, you would kill him there.
Yeah.
But again, even regardless of that, he pretty much one-shots you at this point in the game, as we spoke about. And we can see how even with steel caps, he pretty much one-shotted you. And GA would have helped with that, obviously, as well. But regardless, all that you had to do was wait for someone to actually go on him. But instead, like, you weren't even really in a position where when your Pantheon went on him to go next, and Pantheon, or when your Trinamir went on Pantheon, rather, like, you weren't even in a position to follow up. And so that's kind of why this fight ends up going bad, is because we're just not coordinated or understanding what our team's objective is in the fight, or what we need to do as an ADC. Because you're just thinking, I'm an ADC, I need to do damage. And that's true, but it's like, if you think about it a bit deeper, right, the team comp is much more based around diving forward. And as a low-range, aggressive early-game ADC, once you're at this point in the game, you're very burst oriented. That's kind of what you want to do as well, is just find someone and kind of one-shot them and go in on them. Does that all make sense? I think we'll write out some basic notes here, and then we'll go into the second replay as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so going back into the early game, just parallel, and again, remind me, I don't know how to spell parallel, unlucky. So or tell me if you want me to write it in different words, or if it doesn't make sense, or ask if you have questions or want clarification, whatever. But just first thing, parallel line with support. Again, remember how we were talking about that, obviously. Make early game decisions based on jungle pathing. Again, we spoke about that, so I'm just gonna again go through the general notes, ask questions if you want more stuff.
Yeah,
I'll send builds after. Yeah, what were the other things? Then in mid game, start to play more around mid waves and Baron, because we weren't really controlling the mid waves or like playing around the Baron. You went on side way too much, which could have been very disastrous, and luckily didn't end up being disastrous. But just especially when we're ahead. When we're ahead, the game needs to be a lot more about us. So we need, because again, you were really ahead, and if you went around those mid waves, you could make the game a lot more about you and be a lot more strong. But if you were really behind, then I'm more okay with you going and catching that wave first to get some additional gold on yourself, get to a certain item spike, and then again, identify the item spike that you matter on. Like again, mortal third item really helps if the enemy are really tanky, especially. So then like hitting that might be really good, or for you especially, Storm Magnetic is the biggest power spike for Lucian, because he's a pick champion, an early to mid game champion. So that's, you know, 2 items early to mid game. Picks are obviously very easy when you have that range plus slow, and then play around the mid waves with your support, whatever. My voice keeps cracking. I don't know what's happening, but maybe I'm going through puberty again. I'm not sure. Either way, coordinate plays with duo/trio as well, because like again, your top laner needed to be on side way more often. Instead, you were the one on side. Again, opposite. He needs to be, again, split pushers need to be opposite side of objectives initially to draw pressure, whatever. You need to be playing on mid waves with your support, and neither of those things were happening. Partially, you know, it's nobody's specific's fault. We just need to coordinate these types of things. And so if these are the types of people you're playing with most of the time, you're gonna have to kind of tell them these things, because they probably don't understand them either. So that will help you a lot as well. I mean, you play like 1,000 games, so I'm assuming you play with a lot of different people. probably, because most people don't play 1,000 games. So it's sometimes hard to always coordinate, but I would just say after like a game, just tell them some of these basic things. Or if you do have someone you play with a lot, then you should probably send them this video that I'm going to go over. Like, I don't know if you play with that Leona specifically a lot, but either way, I would think it's probably a good idea to send this type of video to the people you're doing with if they're like really serious about trying to climb and grind as well. But obviously that's not always easy to do because you have to find someone who's really committed to grinding.
Yeah.
Those are probably the main thing. Was there anything else we mentioned? Go ahead, sorry.
No, the coordination again, like that last fight, my positioning wasn't most ideal.
Yeah, so play around, I guess, like comp identity is kind of how I would like word that, which is like when ahead, more passive, and let enemy come into us, and more aggro when behind / outscaled. And then, like I said as well, again, if the team's more aggressive, you can understand that, you know, then you can go for it. So, but yeah, I think those are the main things initially. We'll write more out after we watch this game. But yeah. So you're playing Kaisa here?
So I took this game I also play a lot of Kaisa. Kaisa is
okay.
on top of it. I took this game because we did win, and I ended up having a penta. And I only had like 6 pentas this season so far. And just when I start recording, I get one. And just the fact that it's not really me who was, I wasn't really the one who won the game. It was the Heimerdinger.
And then you you're Kaisa Emilio late game, so then you do things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I thought maybe,
Yeah. That makes sense. Also, you have a low ass. Wait, what server do you play on?
Germany. Europe.
You have a really low ping. Wild. 14. I think I have like 50 usually. But... Yeah, I mean, we'll see again.
Quite nice.
Our lane matchup, Caitlyn and Warren. Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't really mind you kind of push it, like just letting them push into you, since obviously it's kind of a hard matchup early game. But I'm guessing it's going to be a more boring lane phase since the matchup is a little less like that you can do. The only thing is, whenever Caitlyn walks up to auto you, don't be scared to walk back at her and auto Q, because like that's perfectly fine for the trade. But
still get
bullied. Yeah, I mean, for example here, like again, these are small things, but they do matter when you're playing into a poke lane, because every like poke that you take is pretty important, and like you can pressure them off. Like it's obvious that she's walking up to auto you here, and when she stops the auto, you can close the range gap because she has to stand still, and you're also going to be able to get this last hit by queuing. So just walk up to her, auto Q, and you actually win the trade. And just do this more frequently whenever someone tries to poke you, because the nice thing is you have double. Are you duo with the Emilio as well, or no?
Yes.
Okay. So you have double range versus melee range, just like you did last game, where you were the melee support versus double range. And so notice how the same thing, they're doing the same thing, right? He's all the way back here, she's up here. You guys both should be walking and autoing and actually winning the trade. People get really scared at the fact that Caitlyn has high range, and they think, like, I just have to give everything up early game. And it's true that you're going to probably lose prio in the end. But when these types of things happen, you're perfectly fine to walk up and just win the trade, because her autos actually don't, like, she has less base AD, I'm pretty sure, than the average ADC. Like, especially like Tristana's base AD is really high, and you're playing Tristana low range to kind of same thing. And then you third ability auto with Trist, or you first ability and auto with Kaisa, and you're just going to win that trade, even if your Emilio doesn't follow up. And if your Emilio does, then we're going to win it a lot harder. But instead, we get poked under a turret, and then it's really hard here, obviously, because Caitlyn and most poke champions like Ezreal, Varus, Caitlyn, their goal is to get you under this turret, because then every time that you go for a last hit, she autos you. You see how you went for the last hit, she autos you, and you have to choose between either of those, right? But if you're getting a bit more control over the wave initially, which again you can do by auto attacking when they walk up at you like that, then you're kind of allowing yourself a bit more of a buffer in terms of health. Like they're going to be more scared to walk up, and you can last hit a lot more freely. So like even here, so again, this is especially something I've been like trying to work on a lot in my own gameplay as like Syndra, is punishing everyone's last hit. And so when I was thinking to myself, when I played against like a good Syndra player, like one of the best just like mid laners on our server, and he was doing that thing to me, I was like, how can I actually counter that? But then I realized he's going to, like, an actual smart player will wait until this minion gets low, and then when they know you have to walk up at it, they'll start to pressure you. But notice how she's gonna walk up and pressure you when you have like this won't die in the next rotation of these autos from these minions. You have one more, like, wait for it. So since you know she's gonna expect you to walk up like right now when it's getting low, if you walk up just a little bit beforehand, then you can make her waste her spells as you have time to actually trade her. So then she can't Q you, well, you can't get damage back afterwards. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but basically, instead of waiting to walk up only for the last hit, if you notice that they're actually properly punishing you with the range advantage for your for last hitting when you walk up, then walk up when it's like half HP and go up and just trade evenly with her, because you're going to be able to get all your spells off. And then once she uses her first ability, she no longer has that to punish you additionally, and then all she gets is one auto attack on you when you're going for this last hit after you get this initial trade on her, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yes. Yeah, makes sense.
And then again here, notice how she walks too far forward, and your Emilio, like you even won that trade with her. Like notice how she's lower health than you at this point, and that's because you did that properly there, where you walked up and did exactly. But even here, like again, I'm gonna go over every small thing because this is how you win these lanes against people who don't think. Because Kai'Sa's burst damage is really high. It's just her low range early game that makes it hard to win lanes. And so like again, she's walking up, and it's so obvious. Like, what else is she going to do here? She's obviously walking up to auto. We can just look at her posturing, and we don't even see Auron on our map right now. Like, what's going to happen? Again, Caitlyn's strength is her range. It's not her, like, combat in terms of raw damage. So when she's doing this, you guys walk at her, like, call her bluff, but instead she's scaring you just because she's strong, like, high range or whatever. And even here, jungle's here as well, which is an additional benefit, which I didn't even think about the jungle pathing here, but our jungler's also coming here, so everyone being low is better for us. Their jungler could be pathing too, but we know ours is, so that's another reason that we can just punish her. And like, if she was so much lower health here, we'd just be in a way better spot. We're still in a fine spot. And again, these things, just like the last lane phase, you didn't get punished for it. The enemy aren't good enough where like they're probably not going to punish you for it. But again, imagine you had control of this wave because of what happened. You'd be able to walk with Xin, but now Xin's by himself because you're stuck on a wave because we didn't get this prio over the wave. Now Talon's here. This is probably where the game goes bad. And even if we don't like end up like, it doesn't feel like it's your fault when you look at it here, or like when you're playing in the game, you don't realize that you could have changed that outcome because it's like you do these two different things, then the different outcome happens. It's too far removed to really tell that was actually something you could change the outcome of. But those are the types of things where then you get those extra kills, and then you start snowballing the game, and you get ahead in a matchup that you otherwise should be behind in. And if you get ahead of Auron Caitlyn as Kai'Sa Emilio, unless your team is Giga feeding, it's pretty much unlosable. So I'm still fine. Again, the outcome here is fine, just like the outcome of your last lane phase was fine, but it could have been pushed so much harder. We could have traded so much around our jungler. Both times our jungler was pathing towards us, so we probably could have had them at least in a position to potentially kill, and maybe something happens there. So, and then again, greed here, just recall on your BF sword. I don't care that your jungler's dumb and trying to force something. It doesn't matter what they're trying to do, because say that you recalled here, what ends up happening is one of two things. So it's the tempo thing again, which basically tempo is you have the control because you have additional time to do things. When you have the tempo advantage, you have the agency to make the decision you want to make, because maybe you pushed a wave first, so the enemy are stuck clearing it as you get to rotate, or you got to recall off first, so you get an item advantage, and you can fight an item advantage, whatever. Basically, you have agency to make your own decisions. And if you recalled 5 seconds ago, which you could have, you'd be in base right now. And then let's look at the next wave, right? The next wave is here. That means likely the enemy are going to be greedy and stay for it. If the enemy are greedy and stay for it, you can come back in time, and then you're on a BF sword versus Kai'Sa's long sword, which is obviously way more beneficial for you, and you start being so strong you trade with her for free, and you pretty much win every trade, especially as you're hitting your ultimate. And then let's say she does the other thing. She recalls after clearing this wave. Well, then you get on the next wave 5 seconds faster because you recalled 5 seconds before her. That means you get prio over the wave, you get your ultimate first. Having your ultimate first allows you to now push that wave, rotate, you can ward somewhere here, so you can find the enemy jungle, you get control over stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
Because,
Real quick, just
yeah.
quick itemization question. So sometimes, or most of the time, I would go the attack speed item. It's not the smart thing to do, right?
The recurve bow? Yeah, no, definitely go for BF sword. Definitely going to be better.
Okay.
Overall spike.
Okay.
I guess you might be able to end up finding a dive here, but again, like, we don't really know jungle location in this type of situation, which is why it ends up being risky, and it looks like it ended up not working. So that's kind of the thing too. Tanks are especially hard to dive. So generally speaking, unless you have maybe a Volibear or you have someone with a really good setup, maybe a Vi, you can maybe set up the dive when they're level 5 and your laners are level 4, but Xin Zhao doesn't have great hard CC. He's not especially tanky early game, and so these types of things are going to happen. And again, that's his fault for being a fucking idiot, but like you could have dissuaded him from doing that if you had just recalled, as we said, and then we're not in that position. So again, this is the same type of thing I said. The person who deserves the most blame is Xin Zhao, but if we look at it from a purely like our self perspective, which is all we can do, we can control that completely if we did make the different decision. So
Yeah.
you might be able to pick him if you hit a W on him. So he is Talon, so kind of just does that, walks over walls. And then yeah, again, I think jungle. Wait, actually, that's something I didn't notice. This is something as well to look at when you see someone, is what buffs they have. So he has blue and no red. So I don't know if you paid attention to this, but if you look under him, you can tell where he's going to path next. Because this means that he got his blue and his red's going to spawn next because his red wore out. So you can now know he's going to go red side next. So this is the type of thing as well you can kind of look at. It's not, I mean, again, sometimes that Pantheon, for example, will just go to the other lane because they're dumb and you can't always tell. But it does give you a good inference on where they're probably going to go. And so because of that, you don't really want to do anything right now because your jungler is going to his red side and their jungler should be going to his red side as well. And those are hard. Like I don't always do that either. It's sometimes a hard thing to keep in mind, but it's a good thing to just like, you know, when you can notice it, because then you'll be a little bit more aware of jungle pathing and stuff.
Yeah.
And then yeah, our jungler's not really pathing towards us right now, and we are again still in an disadvantageous matchup, so I don't really mind you just sitting under and farming. Not really much else to do. See, that's good though. You do end up going and pressuring the last hit on him, and unfortunately he lands the Q, which again is just you not paying attention to your Melio's positioning. Like you guys need to be spread out so that you're not getting both hit by that poke as well, because you guys both get hit by it. So that's similar mistake as well. But either way, this is going to be a hard matchup at this point. Like there's not that much you can do. Hitting your first item is when you're going to start having like some amount of trading potential. So. And then yeah, this is also the second game in a row where you're putting yourself in a position where you kind of have to recall right when a dragon is spawning, which again, we could just be, this is a bit of a harder situation to do it in because of the matchup and whatever, but either way, it is probably too common of a thing where you're not really setting up for objectives super well, and then just a lot of, you know, issues can occur from that, obviously, because we're not fighting the first objective or whatever. Again, because our teammate goes Herald, doesn't end up mattering too much, but...
Yeah, so what usually happens, and this didn't happen in the past 2 games, is I usually don't really go for dragon fights if I don't know, okay, this is going to be a win. I will just push the wave out and then join the fight. I don't know, okay, like, are we even going to win? So, yeah, that's usually
pushing
what
the
I
wave
do.
out first is usually beneficial, like, and that's usually preferred. There's a couple of different situations that will kind of determine whether or not you go. So say a wave is even like it is right now, and the enemy aren't on the wave, and you know you're stronger. Like maybe you hit one item and you're Lucian, you're gonna be stronger, right? So you want to go to that fight. So if the enemy don't go to the wave, you don't need to respond. You can just go straight to the fight because nobody's getting that wave. It's neutral. We're fine with that. Don't care, because you're gonna be more valuable in the fight. But say you're Kai'Sa into Caitlyn. Okay, let's grab the wave first, especially if we haven't hit our item first, because what really matters is efficiency. If our team decide to overforce a fight with a mega late game comp that's kind of on them, we can still try to rotate to the fight late, because also Kai'Sa has an ultimate, so she can pretty easily go into the fight a little late. You know, it's not going to be that bad for you to enter a little late as well. So those types of things as well are things to keep in mind. Now, if you have the advantage and you're setting up properly, like the last game we had that example, you had the advantage, and you recalled late, right, because you got greedy, and then because of that you weren't able to set up for the objective. So in the situation like last game, you should be having control over the wave, pushing it as it comes, and then you'll probably be able to rotate, get vision on the dragon, and have complete control over that, and you'll be fine. So in those types of situations you do want to go, and then obviously if you're like kind of losing the lane or you're behind, then you don't really need to go unless like after you clear the wave. So basically, when you are in the lead, you want to try to get control of the wave early enough to set up for the objective, and when you're behind, you can kind of be a little bit more fine with accepting that you might lose the fight and just rotating after, like when it's more convenient for you.
Yeah.
then yeah, I mean, again, I still like the mindset you're in is proper for both champions. Like when you're playing Lucian, you're playing more aggressive and trying to trade aggressively and whatever. And when you're playing Kai'Sa, you're pretty just opportunistic, trading only when you like see easy opportunities to trade and letting yourself get pushed under the tower. So you understand your champion identity fine, and you play your champions fine, like mechanically and everything for the most part. Again, you're taking advantage of these situations. It's more of these small optimizations in lane that will lead you to be in better positions, like even despite the fact that maybe you are in a worse matchup or whatever. But again, you understand the champions well and your mechanics are fine, so all of this is good, which makes sense. You played 1,000 games in your Grandmaster on ADC, so you're probably going to have good mechanics, and that's not really going to be the issue. And it's also really hard to focus after playing a bunch, you know, like
Yeah.
to think everything, and I get that. So that's why, I mean, like I like playing the game a lot too. I've probably played like 700 games, 600, 700 games this season, and the way that I kind of let myself not autopilot. I mean, there's a couple things. Sometimes I'll just like get up and do like 20 push-ups in between a game or whatever. That helps or whatever. But also just like things like having certain habits built, focusing specifically on building one habit, then it kind of you autopilot it. Like eventually you can make things become autopilot. Like pushing a wave 30 seconds before an objective is basically, I basically don't need to think. I can be talking to chat and still like do it for the most part. So like if you go into a game and you specifically have a focus of building one habit, so you look at the notes I'm going to send you, and then you choose one to maybe 3 things at a time, only go into, say, the next 10, 20 games thinking about those things, focusing on the fact that you can do those things, and eventually they kind of just become natural, and then you don't really have to think about it. Even if you're in your 10th game of the day and you've lost 9 in a row and you're really tilted, you're probably still going to do that thing, even if you're flaming your jungler as you're doing it or whatever. So that's kind of what like I try to do.
Got it.
And then yeah, also, I mean, since you do play a lot, the issue is not games played. So if you do feel like it's good that you're playing a lot because it's obviously easier to climb, but if you do feel like you're getting like really tilted, just don't play for like 5 games. If you play 1,000 games, you're probably going to play another roughly 400 or 500 within, you know, the next month before the season ends.
Yeah.
So losing 5 games, that's like playing 5 less games is probably not going to be the end of the world, but being tilted and losing 5 games in a row is going to be -10. That's going to be a much bigger like issue for climbing. So but yeah, I mean, your gold is fine here again. I think you're pretty good in terms of farming. You're able to get roughly to your item spikes that you need to get even on these champions, even when you don't have a bunch of kills. You're aware of the waves, and I want you to keep focusing on the waves and the farming and whatever. Like even here, recalling is good because even if you're going to get a little late, you're going to hit the item spike that you want. So that awareness of farming and whatever is very good, and it's just those things that we spoke about. That will be like the main things to work on. But yeah, I think, I mean, I don't even mind you giving this up since you are just a scaling comp as well. So everything's pretty fine here in terms of decision making. We'll see if anything else. And then controlling the mid wave is good here, like this time, better than before we were going side a lot more frequently. So I think it's because you already lost your turret, so you just don't care as much. You do go up a bit far here, so you have flash. You never needed the flash, by the way. You were very safe here. But yeah, that's the second time too. I didn't really point it out because it wasn't the end of the world to me earlier. And even you being in this fight, I don't necessarily hate. Like, it's not ideal, but your team was in the fight and you just tried to help out and deal damage, so it's mostly fine. But I noticed it earlier as well. I just didn't point it out because it's not the end of the world. But you flashed when Akali never had a kill angle on you in topside earlier, and then now you flashed when only a Caitlyn was auto attacking you and you were like 60% HP. You can be a bit more, you know, like okay with taking some damage, or you have to like actually think about the spells as a champion that can actually kill you, which again, kind of same thing as thinking about your identity in that fight. When I was talking about going forward with your team, kind of think about what the enemy champions are actually going to do to you and who's actually dangerous. So like, I'm going to pull up the scoreboard here and then I'll kind of go through like what I would think about just before a fight or even before the game. So if I'm looking at enemy team comp, Talon and Akali are both assassins. They can obviously one-shot me, but if I have my flash or my third ability or whatever, or my ultimate, my exhaust, they're probably not things I have to like actively think about that hard, because again, you have flash, exhaust, ultimate, you have ways to usually escape these champions. Ornn, his ultimate is pretty undodgeable for you for the most part if he goes on you, or his engage is going to be pretty hard to dodge. So having flash up for him or third ability for him is pretty good. So like you can probably, if I'm looking at their team comp, your third ability is going to be really good at kiting out either Ornn or Sion, because both of their engages are kind of slow. Like they don't have really hard, like, you know, they're not Nautilus point and click ultimate, there are more things that you can, use movement speed to dodge. And then if we're looking at a Kali Talon, like I said, exhaust and flash are the ways to escape high mobile champions who have really high burst damage. So those are the things, those are the ways I want to respond to the enemy champions, and I need to think about that. And then if I'm looking at it again, I want to buy stasis, because obviously if a Talon or an Akali does show up randomly and flank me, because that probably will happen at some point, stasis lets me buy a lot of time. So those are the main things about how I want to respond to the enemy. And notice how Caitlyn wasn't even a part of my thought process, because she's just going to auto attack me. She does nothing else scary. So when she's on my screen, I just react. You only need to think about the real dangers, the CC, the mega high burst damage assassins, whatever. Everything else, you just react as you see it. But again, when you just see like a Caitlyn and nothing else going on you, there shouldn't really be threat. You should be like, oh, but is the Orin somewhere? Do I need the third ability, the Orin ultimate yet? Do I have the exhaust if I see a Talon or something? So thinking of those types of things is going to be like more beneficial, and it's going to make it easier for you to not panic flash as much or something.
Yes. Got it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then this is a really good time to take a turret because of 20 seconds before Baron. Like that's, again, I think your macro decision making in terms of getting gold is very good. You're able to find a lot of free gold in the map, so that's very good. And then I also wouldn't buy stasis yet. Like I said, I'm only buying stasis when I'm ahead of the curve. Otherwise, I'm probably not getting stasis until getting close to the Elder Dragon fight, where I'm really going to need it to not get one shot, when that's going to be kind of like the game ending fight. But yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think your gameplay is pretty, like, I don't think there's as much to learn from this, because you said you get a penta. So, I mean, I'm assuming you're just going to, like, eventually team fight and play a team fight well. Apart from that, all of your macros have been fine to get to this point in the game, really. Like, decision making has been fine. It's a, okay, well, here's the first issue. So, we just see. But yeah, obviously, we spoke about this already, so I don't really need to go into detail. Are you just duo with Melia? Are you trio again? Or what's up with who we're playing with?
Duo.
Okay, so we can't control what our teammate does, so it's a little unfortunate that there's a Scion here. But regardless of that, we still need to be covering a Baron that's a lot more valuable. He's not even got a wave yet. And even if we lose an inhib, that's not even that bad to lose an inhib this early in the game. Because all that does is get you a bunch of free gold on the side lane that you can farm for free as a Kaisa, which you're kind of fine with. So I guess you just steal Baron, so we don't care. That's cool. But like, should have just been there with our team.
Heimer.
Yeah, shout out to Heimerdinger. That dude is playing well. But, like, I guess he's not even doing well yet. You're kind of the one who's, like, a lot stronger. But, I mean, he got the steal, so we'll take it.
Exactly.
And then, again, you use this to get the gold, which I like, because most people don't realize that the goal of an early Elder, or an early T-Rex, is just to get gold, unless there's, like, a dragon up. So, I like that you do this as well, both times. Again, just make sure you're not putting yourself in a scary position. Also, do the enemy have 2 dragons? Because, okay, then I'm actually, now I remember, okay, I don't like it. But I like the thought process behind it. But remember, like we spoke about this already, right? If a soul is the 3rd dragon, it's bad to take this, because then they can just win the fight. But if it's not a soul, then it's going to be good to do this, because you're going to get yourself really accelerated. So it's still like pretty fine here. But obviously we can kind of see why it turns out a little suboptimal. But again, I still like the idea. And again, the goal, I can see, again, you're very aware of getting yourself gold and getting yourself to certain parts of the game, which is kind of funny since you play a lot of early game champions, when this is really, like, especially a useful thing for late game champs. But like Tristana, obviously, late game 2 and Kaisa. So, I mean, it's still a good thing to have in your mind, and you're very good at that. So that's definitely good. But yeah, we can kind of see where the issue would come a little bit. Either way, like I said, I think the lane phase is more the issue this game, where you weren't punishing all of those things with Caitlyn that really should have been punished, and that's kind of just the awareness of that. And then even here, when you're using the T-Rex, at that point, once there is a fight over the dragon, you should just be going into that dragon. Like, another thing, if you do want to use the T-Rex, you had about a minute before a dragon spawned, you can literally go run it down as a T-Rex just to get Baron buff on minions, and like get yourself low enough where you can eject. Don't let it die, but try to get them to hit you enough where you can then eject from it, because then you'll be able to still stay in the fight, but you also get some of that gold from it, and you get the main lane pushing or whatever. So yeah. But either way, your mega fed is a ISO with Melio now, so it still is a pretty fine situation to be in, and I'm assuming you're just going to go to fight soon.
I'm having a phone call. I just need one minute real quick.
Yeah, you're fine. Which is like, it's good awareness too that you understand. I think here you should buy stasis, by the way. Like, you had 1k gold and you'd been 4 items. There's no reason not to just buy stasis, because like, you're not really going to get 5th item, so it makes more sense to get the active. But you bastard kid.
Toxicity is something else, man.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about streaming. I can just flame them on my stream. Like I don't type. It's just like I can just get mad at my stream and no problem. Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna penta here. Okay, so you
No.
didn't the next fight. Yeah, either way, I mean I don't really hate how you
Yeah.
play that anyway, so it worked. And yeah, you're right. Like the reason you have a lot of gold is because of the T-Rex. Like I said, the usage of the T-Rex can be
No.
slightly different, but it still is like not a bad situation because of the fact you like. That's why I still like the idea of using it. It's just the souls where it becomes like then not quite. Bro, what the fuck? Okay.
That's what I was saying. That's why we won.
Yeah.
That's why
I thought
we
like
even
he
won in
played
the
well or
first
something.
place.
He didn't even play well. He just stole 2 barons. Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm tired and tilted. He sounds so like depressed. This is kind of nothing went good
Oh
for
wait,
me,
I'm
bro. He's just like he's just depressed. Like you have a straight up depressed teammate on your team. All right, well he's
yeah,
probably
wait, I
really
went
happy
trio
about this.
with the jungle too.
Yeah. Yo, you trio with jungle.
Yeah, trio with jungle.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, there you go. We hit the W.
I'm not really that good with skill shots though.
You didn't even try. Okay, whatever. I respect it. We got the pentakill. We'll take it. That is the good thing about Kaisa late game. She can just do things like that. So I don't really think,
Yeah.
like I said, your macro, apart from the T-Rex usage, so first thing, like, we'll just write that real quick. This will be Kaisa now, but Kaisa, we'll just write that. So use T-Rex to get golds only when next objective doesn't matter, basically. I'm just going to say it this way because this means then obviously don't do it before Elder, don't do it before Soul, don't do it before, well, you wouldn't be Baron because you just got the Baron, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Then again, your macro late game, you did pretty much everything you should for getting gold on yourself, and you are just a scaling champion. So I don't really think the like late game needs to be spoken about for this game. So the main thing we'll talk about is the lane phase. So when outranged in lane, use enemy stopping to auto attack
Yeah.
to close range gap, and then when double ranged into melee ranged, if enemy melee is standing far back, punish ADC and vice versa. Basically anytime that someone is like far up and the other one isn't, basically the opposite of when you're not on parallel line. Like you need to be very aware of that, and that's really something you should kind of keep in mind with any of your supports you're playing with a lot. Even if your support like isn't doing it themselves or they're not aware of it, you can still do it because you just pay attention to what they're doing and their actions. So you don't even, it doesn't always have to be coordinated. If you're paying attention to it, it's usually fine anyway, but obviously it works better if you are like talking to them about it. And then in lane as well, again, trade more around jungle again, because your jungle was there in a situation and you were still playing pretty scared when we could have otherwise like done something. And then last thing is before fights, keep in mind most dangerous enemies and how you will respond. Again, you know, the third ability into certain champs, maybe you flash something else, whatever. Obviously,
Yeah.
it ends up kind of being dependent on like how the game plays out. Like sometimes you do have to flash a Caitlyn, you know, or something. You never know. But this is more of a general idea you can get into your games. So are there any additional questions or anything else like that?
So I don't have questions in mind right now.
I mean, like I said,
That's
we have
actually
another
all
hour
that
that we'll
makes
do
sense.
later. So, like, if you have more questions,
Yeah.
then once you try to work on these
Yeah.
things, like I said, work on these for anywhere from say 1 to 3 weeks, and then maybe as we're getting towards the end of the season, we can do one more to see if we like fix these things and see if there's other things to work on. But yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. For
And
sure.
I'm gonna
No, that
send you
was great.
these, and then I'll send you the Lucian build thing, and I'll see you later.